Amma ba'd. Respected friends and elders, alhamdulillah, we continue on with the names of Allah Ta'ala. And today, inshallah, we'll be talking about the name of Allah Ta'ala, Al-Quddoos. Al-Quddoos, this is a famous name that we often hear, which can be translated as the pure being, right? We find it in one of the ayat that I recited in Asha, Huwallahu alladhi la ilaha illahu al-malikul quddus. So last week we spoke about al-malik, today al-Quddoos. So the pure being. Regarding this Al-Quddoos, the scholars, they say that there are different explanations of this, the name of Allah Ta'ala. So he says that this name of Allah Ta'ala, Tafsir Qurtubi mentions, or Tafsir Tabari rather, mentions that there are two meanings that are included in this one name. One is Tahara and second is Ta'zeem. Tahara meaning what? Allah Ta'ala is pure and clean, or rather Tahara means like cleanliness, right? Purification. So Allah Ta'ala is clean and pure from any and everything rather. Right? We want to leave it a bit vague, right? And ta'zeem is that respect and honor. Allah Ta'ala is honored and respectable, and Allah Ta'ala is respected above everything else. Right? So this is how Tafsir Tabari mentions, and he explains it, that this one name of Al-Quddoos encompasses both meanings. Right? That Tahara and Ta'zeem, both, or Tathir and Ta'zeem, both are included in this one name. Ibn Jarir, he mentions, or rather, Ibn Kathir rahmatullah alayhi, he also explains under this. He says that Al-Quddoos means Al-Munazzah anin naqais. Right? He says that that being who is pure and clean from all impurities or all deficiencies or all defects. Okay? Al-Mawsuf bi-sifatil kamal. That Allah Ta'ala, He is characterized as that being who has the height or the pinnacle of perfection in everything. The pinnacle of perfection in every single aspect. Right? So now, this is how some scholars they explain it, right? That Allah Ta'ala is pure and above all deficiencies. Imam Ghazali, he has a beautiful take on this. He says that Al-Quddoos, he does not translate it as Allah is not free. Listen to me very carefully. He says Allah Ta'ala, he does not translate it as Allah Ta'ala is not free from all blemishes. And he does not translate it as Allah is not free from all weaknesses. Why? He says that we cannot even fathom to bring any weaknesses in front of Allah Ta'ala. So for example, he brings the example. He says that you take the example of a king. He says, you don't say that the king is not a laborer, or the king is not a worker, or the king is not a barber. He's not a barber, right? And you don't say those things because that's above, quote unquote, again, this is just, Imam Ghazali is saying this. He says that it's, quote unquote, disrespectful to the king to say that he is not a barber, or he is not a laborer, mazdur, or whatever else it is. Now again, this is not me putting down barbers or mazdur or anyone else, right? But the fact is that, understand that a king is someone who is highly respected in society. Allah Ta'ala is well above any kings. So we don't even attribute any weakness or any type of deficiency to Allah Ta'ala. Right? So Imam Ghazali, he explains it like that, right? That we don't even explain or bring any deficiency in the context of Allah Ta'ala. That doesn't even come into play. There's no factor, there's no way that Allah Ta'ala and any deficiency can be in the same sentence. That's his bottom line. And it's a very minute point. Right? It's a very small and, not small, meaning like it's a very barik point, as it's in Urdu, right? It's a very barik point, like it's a very intricate detail. But it's a beautiful detail. Imam Ghazali, he says it like this, right? So, just we understand it like that, for example, as humans, we may think that, that Allah Ta'ala is all hearing, Allah Ta'ala is all seeing, and we think about our seeing and our hearing, and then we think of Allah Ta'ala's hearing in that way. Whereas in reality, there's no comparison between our hearing, our sight, and how Allah Ta'ala is. Allah Ta'ala is completely beyond our comprehension. Right? This is the fact. We do not even understand how Allah Ta'ala is. Right? That's how amazing Allah Ta'ala is, right? So this is Allah Ta'ala's understanding, Allah Ta'ala's knowledge, Allah Ta'ala's power is completely, infinitely beyond our comprehension. I've said this many times before, right? But I'll explain it one more time, right? That you and I, as human beings, we are creatures, creations of Allah Ta'ala, we are very limited in our understanding. Right? We're very limited in every aspect. Right? So for example, I cannot see what's happening behind this wall. Right? I cannot hear until a certain distance. Right? Beyond that distance, I cannot hear what's happening there. Right? I cannot smell until for a certain distance. Right? I'm very limited in every possible method. I am limited. So why do I think that I can be unlimited in my mind and unlimited in my understanding? Right? Of course, there's a limit to my understanding as well. That I am limited in my understanding. And there are many things that are beyond my comprehension. Right? So, very simply put, for example, there are many aspects of, for example, the universe or many different sciences, many different knowledges, which beyond my understanding. So, take that limited mindset and try to apply it to Allah Ta'ala. It's completely irrelevant. My mind will never comprehend Allah Ta'ala. So when I think of seeing, when I think of hearing, when I think of all of these things, this is completely different from how Allah Ta'ala sees, how Allah Ta'ala hears, how Allah Ta'ala is. So in the Quran, Allah Ta'ala brings about, for example, the consumption of fruits, and Allah Ta'ala brings in Jannah, you'll have all of these different types of vegetation and fruits and all of these benefits, right? In reality, the fruits of the Akhirah, the fruits of Jannah are nothing like the fruits of this world. The fruits of Jannah are beyond comprehension. But why does Allah Ta'ala bring things, or in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, we find some words that we relate to, right? That's the reason. Rasulullah ﷺ brings those words, and Allah Ta'ala brings those words so that it somewhat relates to us. But in reality, those are entirely different things. So again, this is how Al-Quddoos is, right? Sayyidina Ibn al-Arabi rahmatullah alayhi, he explains that Allah Ta'ala's attribute of Al-Quddoos is described in 10 ways. And I'll end off here, inshallah. I'll mention this and I'll mention one more hadith and I'll end off, inshallah. So Ibn al-Arabi says that there are 10 ways that Allah Ta'ala is Al-Quddoos. Number one is Allah Ta'ala is completely pure from having any partners. Allah is pure from having any equals. There's no partners to Allah Ta'ala. There's nothing. As Allah Ta'ala himself says in the Quran, that if there were multiple gods, right, then the entire earth and the world would be destroyed. Right? The entire world, universe would be destroyed. Because it doesn't make sense. Just as you cannot have two prime ministers, you cannot have two presidents, you cannot have two gods. Right? And so Allah Ta'ala cannot have any partners. Number two is there's no one equal to Allah Ta'ala. There's no one that can claim any type of equality to Allah Ta'ala. That's not possible at all. At the same time, there's no opposite to Allah Ta'ala. Allah Ta'ala is in His own realm, or in His own, you can say His own language. Dimension, whichever way you would try to explain it. Allah Ta'ala is in His own place. Whereas there's no opposite to Allah Ta'ala. Of course, Allah Ta'ala is, number four, Allah Ta'ala is pure from any children. Allah Ta'ala is pure from whatever even we imagine Allah Ta'ala to be. Allah Ta'ala is beyond that. Same thing. I mean, the creation of Allah Ta'ala, as Allah Ta'ala says, the Jannah is something that no eyes have ever seen, no ear has ever heard, no one can even comprehend what Jannah is. So you can imagine how Allah Ta'ala is much more beyond that as well. Right? Number six is Allah Ta'ala is pure from being confined by space or time. This is something which I mentioned before as well, right? That everything around us is limited and confined by time and space, right? So I, as a person, as a human being, I'm confined by time and space, right? This water bottle, for example, is confined by time and space. Every single thing around us is confined by time and space. And Allah is the creator of time and space. So you cannot confine Allah into what He created. Right? So Allah is pure from Allah is pure from being confined by time and space. And then Allah Ta'ala is pure from ever being completely seen by the mortal naked eye. Right? In earth, we cannot see Allah Ta'ala. Right? As we know, in Musa alayhi salam tried, he wanted to see Allah Ta'ala. Allah Ta'ala's the entire mountain was destroyed when a small nur of Allah Ta'ala was descended. Entire mountains were decimated. Right? And of course, so this is not possible that a human can see Allah Ta'ala. It's not possible. And the day of judgment, Allah Ta'ala will give us certain powers. Allah Ta'ala will give us certain, in Jannah inshallah, Allah Ta'ala will give us certain ability to see Allah Ta'ala. And we'll just be in awe of Allah Ta'ala. However Allah Ta'ala is, we'll be in awe of Allah Ta'ala. For who knows how many centuries, we'll just be witnessing Allah Ta'ala. For how long we'll just be staring at Allah Ta'ala. This is, so in this world, Allah Ta'ala is not able to be sighted by the mortal eye. Number 8 is Allah Ta'ala is pure from any need from His creation. There are so many ahadith on this topic, right? That Allah does not need any one of us, right? And if Allah, in a hadith Rasulullah says, in a hadith Qudsi, right? That if the entire humanity becomes like the worst of you, that does not decrease the might and who Allah Ta'ala is even by a small amount. And if all of humanity, everyone becomes the best of people, even then, that will not increase who Allah Ta'ala is by any means whatsoever. Allah Ta'ala is who He is. Us being good or bad only benefits us. It does not benefit Allah Ta'ala. Right? And number 9 is Allah Ta'ala Himself. He Himself purifies everything else. Allah Ta'ala is the purifier. Right? So Al-Quddoos, He Himself is pure and He purifies others. He cleanses others. Right? And number 10 is that Allah Ta'ala, He possesses this complete perfection in every single attribute, every single quality. And it's not possible to say that there's any type of deficiency. There's no defect whatsoever. It's impossible for us to even think along those lines. So this is Al-Quddoos. Al-Quddoos is pure, but there's so much explanation to what, you cannot translate pure just one word as pure. There's so much explanation to what Al-Quddoos means, right? That's why in the hadith Rasulullah SAW, he used to say in his ruku' and his sajda, he would say, Subbuhun Quddus Rabbul Malaikati wal Ruh. Subbuhun Quddus Rabbul Malaikati wal Ruh. This is something that the Prophet ﷺ would say in his ruku' and his sajda. That Allah Ta'ala is Subbuh, meaning Allah Ta'ala is that being who is, the scholars, they've translated Subbuh as the being who is clean and pure from all types of deficiencies and all types of partners, and any type of being who can be considered God. Allah is completely pure from all of that, meaning there's nothing that can be compared to Allah Ta'ala. And Quddus means al-mutahhar min kulli ma yaliqu bil khaliq. Any type of creature or creator, anything that can be considered as a khaliq, as a creator, Allah is completely pure from that. So Subbuhun Quddus Rabbul Malaika, Allah Ta'ala is the Rabb of the Malaika, and wal Ruh, Allah Ta'ala is the Rabb of the Ruh. And that could be either the Ruh itself, our Ruh, or Jibreel alayhi salam. It could be either. Right? And nonetheless, this is Al-Quddoos, and this is Allah Ta'ala. That you and I, we must recognize Allah Ta'ala. That Allah Ta'ala is this being, yet Allah Ta'ala, He created us, and we are always indebted. We owe everything to Allah Ta'ala. And this is who we worship. And this is that supreme being that we must turn our attention to. Whenever we need anything, we turn only to Allah Ta'ala. We don't turn to anyone else. And we recognize that Allah Ta'ala is completely pure and free from everything and anything. May Allah Ta'ala bring this reality in our hearts. Allah Ta'ala give us tawfiq to understand and practice. Wa aslu da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.
हॉस्पिटल में उनको स्टंट डला है